And we're off. Hey there, guys. Welcome to this series that we're gonna actually go through a little bit more of the educational portion of RB nutrition. So, one of the biggest factors that I saw was one of the biggest impacts for myself, for most of the people that actually go through this program, is the educational component of it. One of the things that I noticed was that the more we follow the educational piece, the more we understand what's actually going on with every different thing, every different method that we're applying for our body. I feel like education is going to lead to compliance. It's going to lead to actually you following the steps that we're taking and being committed to these steps because you're going to ultimately understand why we're doing it. So education leads to compliance. And that's why one of the biggest emphasis that I'm going to try to apply for RB nutrition is really to educate everyone for the reasons on why we're actually taking the steps that we're taking, why we're actually doing what we're doing. So for this first, going into RB Academy and actually taking a deeper dive on what we're doing within our program, let's look at the reasons of why we're doing it. So this is going to be chapter 1 of RB Academy. And as you see in chapter 1, we're talking mainly about energy balance. So in regards to energy balance, a lot of times we hear out there calories in, calories out. What are calories? What does this mean? When we go into weight loss, everyone talks about calorie deficit. When we go into building muscle, everyone talks about a calorie surplus. If I'm eating too much calorie, does that mean I'm gaining weight? So let's take a deeper dive. I do gotta say, energy balance is probably the king of what we're trying to do with our body in regards to weight gain, weight loss, or weight maintenance. It's one of the most important aspects, and it's a non-negotiable that really dictates body weight. So when we are looking at energy balance, yes, we are talking about calories, but what are calories? Calories are basically a unit of measurement. Calories measure, if we take a deeper dive on what calories actually measure, they measure the amount of energy that it takes to heat up a pound or a gram of water, something like that. But in regards to that, what we ultimately want to understand is it's just a unit of energy. It's a unit to measure energy, same as pound is a unit to measure weight, and miles or kilometers are a unit to measure distance. So it's just a unit of measurement. So we actually want to take a deeper dive on what this energy does for our body. So that's why from now on, whenever I talk about calories in, calories out, energy deficit, energy surplus, or calorie deficit, calorie surplus, I'm going to mainly regard it as energy because that's what we ultimately want to understand. All the calories that we're getting in, the calories that are being used is a transfer of energy. It's a balance of energy. Now, when we're looking at energy, energy cannot be created, it cannot be destroyed. Energy is transferred. That is literally one of the laws of physics. We really can't modify that. So we got to understand that as energy goes into our body and as energy leaves into our body, we're never destroying that energy and we're never creating that energy ourselves. It's always being transferred. So when we're looking at energy balance, we're looking at two spectrums, the energy coming into our body and the energy going out. Now, it's not as easy as just saying, oh, I just got to eat less and move more. Because a lot of people say, okay, calories coming in is the food that I eat, and the calories going out is basically how much I work out. It somewhat that has, I mean, I understand why that became so popular, but it's really not all that entails energy balance. So we know energy in, that is one of the simpler concepts. Energy in is basically the food and drinks that we consume. Everything that we drink, everything that we eat contain energy. That energy could be in forms of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and sometimes even alcohol, which is aka sometimes considered the fourth macronutrient just because it has a different energy profile than some of the ones than the carbs, fats, and protein. So everything that we eat and everything that we drink has energy. That's providing energy for us. That's very simple. The more we eat, the more energy we get. The less we eat, the less energy we get. Obviously, when we look into the foods and the drinks and the specifics of what's in it, there's foods that contain more energy and there's foods that contain less energy. There's foods that for a smaller amount have more calories, and there's foods that for a bigger amount have less calories. So we understand that part. That's become not basic knowledge, but I feel like a lot of people really understand that portion of energy in. Now, energy out, this is where everyone kind of gets lost, because most of the time when we're thinking about energy out, what comes to mind is the energy being used in our exercise. And a lot of times when we're looking at energy out, all we do is we track, oh, this is how much calories my body burned for that workout. This is how much calories that 30-minute jog took. This is how much calories I burned in that X amount of time of that group training class. We got to understand that energy out portion is a lot more complex than that. When we're actually looking at energy out's divided into 4 different categories. We're looking at the RMR, which is the resting metabolic rate, also known as BMR, basal metabolic rate, different ways to say the same thing. We got non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and I'll explain each one of these a little bit later. We got exercise activity thermogenesis, and we have diet-induced thermogenesis, or the thermic effect of food. Again, different ways to say the same thing. Depending on the books that you read and the people that you follow, they might use different terms, but the different terms are just names to what we're actually explaining within these. Now let's go into more detail. So first of all, let's take a look at energy consumed. So like I said before, the energy that we're consuming is basically the calories that comes in that forms part of our foods and our drinks. So that's energy, and that's made up of carbs, proteins, and fats. So your total calorie intake is a mixture of these. It could be carbs, proteins, and fats. It could be mainly protein and fats. We have some foods and drinks that contain all 3 of them. We have some foods and drinks that contain more of one than the other. For example, if we're looking at beef, a lot of people say, oh, beef is a protein, meat is a protein, but you got to understand, depending on the meat that you get and the beef that you have, it is protein, but it does have some fat. Let's give another example so you have a better understanding of this. For example, a chicken breast and a chicken thigh. Chicken breast has more protein than fat to calorie ratio than a chicken thigh, which has a higher fat. Obviously, it's still higher in protein, but it has higher fat than a chicken breast per calorie. So we got to understand this. And when we're looking at the calories that each one of these macronutrients give us, carbs and proteins are about 4 calories per gram, and fats are about 9 calories per gram. That's why when we look at proteins and carbs, they're less calorie dense than a fat. And to be honest, if you're looking at a protein, it's less calorie dense than a carb in itself. When we're looking at fat, and by less calorie dense, it means with fat, a little goes a long way. You get a teaspoon of peanut butter and you get a bag of popcorn, depending on the type of popcorn and depending on how you cooked it, they might even have the same amount of calories. And there's a significant difference in the amount of peanut butter and the amount of popcorn. So this is what you see when you're looking at the details of like, okay, this food has a little bit more fat. Doesn't mean it's bad, but there is a calorie to macro ratio based on how much carbs, proteins, and fats it has. Now, like I said, all of this is basically what we consume. Later on, we're going to see how we can modify this. Later on, we're going to see how that affects our workouts, our performance, and all this. Now, let's take a look at how we actually expend calories. And with expending calories, there's usually 4 subcomponents to this. So the whole amount of calories that we burn throughout the day, that's called your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. So the amount of energy that you burn from the first hour of the day to the last hour of the day in sleep or in activity, that's your total daily energy expenditure. That gets divided into 4 different subcategories, subcomponents. So we got your RMR, like I said before, your resting metabolic rate, your NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, your EAT, exercise activity thermogenesis, and the DIT, or the thermic effect. I like to call it TEF, the thermic effect of food, just because I like TEF rolls off the tongue a little bit more. So resting metabolic rate, or BMR. This is basically the amount of energy your body needs at rest without doing anything. It's just the energy required to literally maintain normal body functions, like what your lungs and what everything's doing inside your body, your brain thinking and processing all these basic normal body functions that we do when we're sleeping, when we're awake, when we're active, when we're like throughout the day, that's your RMR. So if you see, that's the majority of your energy expenditure. And that can slightly be modified. And I'll teach you guys later on how you can modify this. Just a precursor, usually having a little bit more lean muscle mass on our body, having a little bit more muscle on our body, that helps us have a higher resting metabolic rate than having less muscle on our body. That's why we say if you want to burn more calories at rest, having more lean muscle tissue on your body would help you do that. It's not a factor of we're gaining weight so much that it's like most of the time we have little amounts of muscle because so that makes our RMR a lot less and we burn less calories throughout the day. Then we got NEAT. NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Basically, it's all the energy expended just with normal non-exercise day-to-day activity. So that this is unconscious movements. This is like when I talk with my hands, and because I talk with my hands throughout the day, all day, every day, I tend to burn a little bit more calories than someone who might not talk with their hands. I fidget a lot. I do the same with my foot where I'm like bouncing it up and down, especially when I get nervous. That also helps me, makes me burn a little bit more calories than if I wasn't doing that. The more active I am without taking into account going to the gym or getting exercise. Like if I'm walking to the bathroom more often throughout the day than not, I'm probably going to be more active. I'm probably going to be burning more calories throughout the day just from doing that, which is non-exercise induced calorie burn. Let's say for someone that works as a construction worker compared to someone that works in an office, the person that works in the construction job, he doesn't consider that exercise. That's just his day-to-day, because that is his day-to-day. He usually probably tends to be more active and burns more calories than someone that works in the office sitting down all day. So that's the difference between NEAT. Then we're looking at EAT, which is exercise activity thermogenesis. Also, this is the biggest one. This is the one that most people know of. This is the energy used in voluntary exercise. So this is like you going to the gym, you go into that fitness class, you taking a jog. This is exercise activity thermogenesis. Now, if you look at the percentages of these, your RMR has the biggest percentage. That's like 65%. Your NEAT is pretty not substantial compared to your RMR, but compared to the other ones, it's pretty high. So it's 15%. And then when you're looking at the one that everyone pays attention to, your exercise activity thermogenesis, you notice that it's not as much as you would think. It's only 10% of the amount of energy that we burn throughout the day. So many people place such an emphasis to something that doesn't move the cursor as much, but it can help. I'm not saying it's bad, because exercise has different effects on our body that are extremely beneficial, not just the amount of calories that we burn. And then last but not least, we have diet-induced thermogenesis, or the thermic effect of food, basically TEF. This is the amount of energy expended for your body to digest food, to absorb food, to store food, basically go through all its metabolic functions. This could actually be modified by the way that you eat. Usually we see protein is requires slightly more energy to be processed, digested, and absorbed. So because of that, someone that has a higher protein diet might have a little bit more energy expended than someone that has less protein throughout their day. So that's basically eat. And that's how your body literally burns calories throughout the day. Now, so you could understand this a little bit more, and you could visualize the impact that you create whenever there is a modification. Let's say you have a graph and you have somebody that eats about 2,500 calories and expends 2,500 calories. As you see in this graph right here, if you eat exactly the amount that you expend in all these different functions, so we're getting 2,500 calories in, 2,500 calories out, your weight is going to stay the same. This is called being at a maintenance. When you burn as much as you ingest, you're at a maintenance. Now, let's say you have less calories in than what actually goes out. Let's say you have in between your foods and your drinks and the amount of energy that it produces, it's less energy than what you expend based on all these different factors. then you produce what's called a caloric or an energy deficit. Because there's less energy, it's a deficit. You're having less energy than what you're burning. So this actually produces weight loss. This is what everyone tends to look for. And then we have, if you're consuming more calories than what we're expending, if you have more energy coming in than the energy that we're releasing, that we're using, then that produces weight gain. There's no way around this. Calories in, calories out. That's the king of everything. This is what dictates how much weight you have, how much weight you're gaining, how much weight you're dropping, or how much weight you're maintaining. You can't lose weight unless you're in a calorie deficit. You can't gain weight unless you're in a calorie surplus. So, what does this tell us? If you're someone that did keto and lost weight, if you're someone that did intermittent fasting and lost weight, if you're someone that took away a meal from their day and lost weight, if you're someone that exercised a little bit more and you lost weight, if you took any process and you saw weight loss, there was an aspect of caloric deficit being applied, just that you weren't aware of it. All the diets, everything out there, if you're that are directed towards losing weight, it's not a magic pill. It's not this, it's not that. It's the aspect that you're in a caloric deficit, you're burning more calories than you're coming in, and that's why you're losing weight. Now, this doesn't mean shouldn't be the only focus, because we know weight loss, weight gain, weight maintenance is not the only factor to track progress. You could have someone that dramatically lost a lot of weight in a very short amount of time. They probably lost weight not just from fat, but also from muscle, and that's not something that we want. We also have the other way around, someone that gained a lot of weight in a very short amount of time again. That's probably mainly fat with small to little amounts of muscle. Also nothing that we want, not something that we want. And then we got someone that didn't gain, didn't lose, but maintain, and you see a dramatic difference in their body. This is called a body recomposition. Dramatic difference, didn't lose weight, didn't gain weight, but there was something that happened within the body. What happened? If they didn't lose weight, if they didn't gain weight and they maintained, but their body looks dramatically different, then how do we classify this? This is what we're going to get into next. The different factors that apply with energy balance that make a difference in the results that we want to get, which shouldn't just be calories. Calories in, calories out, yes, are very important. And this is what's going to dictate our progress throughout our program, throughout our weight loss journey or our weight gain, muscle gain journey. But what's actually going to define how much muscle we have, how much muscle we keep, how much muscle we build, or mitigate the amount of muscle that we lose goes into little further details within the macros. And we'll talk about that next time. Guys, this is all for today. Thank you for joining me. That was energy balance, the critical first step, non-negotiable factor that dictates body weight. I'm out of here. Hope you guys have an excellent rest of your day. If you're catching this replay and you're not within RB Nutrition or you don't follow RB Academy, please let me know and I'll shoot you a copy of this book. Bye.